I woke up to a silence that didn't feel right. Our house was dark, while the streetlights glowed like nothing happened, and when I heard a shoe scrape the back fence, I knew trouble had finally climbed. Two hooded guys dropped into my yard and beelined for the gate that leads to my driveway. And the one thing I wasn't letting anyone take, my rolls. So I grabbed a flashlight. Instead of a speech, slipped out the front door, met them at the latch, blinded them, slammed the gate, and locked one of them inside like a kid in timeout. Handed him a juice box, called 911, and told the dispatcher I'd keep the guest entertained. If that sounds crazy, it is. But to understand why I went for a flashlight instead of a lawyer, you need the rest of it. You need the slow burn that started weeks earlier, when our HOA president decided her title gave her the right to tag my car, like a suitcase at an airport. Yeah, that happened. My name's Ethan Parker. I'm a wrench and receipts kind of guy. A thing should make sense when you touch it. And for 2 years, my sense was a 1961 Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud I dragged out of a barn west of Cedar County. When I found her, she smelled like stale hay and rainwater. The vents had mouse nests. The rockers were scabbed with rust, but I could see the curve of that fender under the grime. My grandfather kept a photo of a silver cloud taped above his toolbox and used to tap it with a knuckle and say, "Engineering as art, kid." One day, he never got that day, but he left me his tools. So I bought a broken dream and spent 2 summers putting it back together. You know what I mean. My wife Maya is the calm. In my storms, she held the work light. Brought coffee in chipped mugs, read forum posts, while I cursed at British wiring that looks like spaghetti. Drawn by a poet the first time the V8 coughed and caught. She whooped so loud, our neighbor thought the house had won the lottery. We sanded and primed and sprayed until the smoke gray went deep and the chrome turned mirror bright. The morning I rolled it into the driveway just to let the sun crawl across the paint. We stood there, quiet. 2 people who had built a thing with their hands, and then Brenda crossed the street. Maple Ridge is one of those subdivisions that sells peace by the square-foot porches and petunias. Kids on bikes and the Maple Ridge Community Association, MRCA, that manages it all, and Brenda Sutton wears the presidency like a crown clipboard, always tucked like a scepter. Emails full of exclamation points. Fines for plastic flamingos because they're visually disruptive. If there's a rule to bend, she can make it into a spear. So of course she marched right up my driveway that morning. No good morning. Just Mr. Parker. What is this? Like I'd parked a blimp on the lawn. I said, "It's a car," and took a slow sip of coffee. She circled the hood like a vulture that says grace before it eats. And then I saw the tag in her hand. Bright yellow plastic zip tie, already looped, property of Martier. Scrawled in block letters, and before I could process the audacity, she slid that tie around the base of the Spirit of Ecstasy and pulled until it clicked. That tag swung under the hood ornament like a cheap necklace on a queen. I told her I had the title, the registration, and 2 years of busted knuckles that said, "This is mine," and she smiled. Without warmth, and said, "Visible improvements can be designated as community assets." My authority covers that. Translation, my status grants ownership. And then she told me my car would lead the Heritage Day parade. She'd send a maintenance schedule. I laughed the tired kind of laugh you use when someone steps so far over a line they can't see you anymore. Maya was already filming, because she has that 6th sense for nonsense. I kept it calm. Took photos of the VIN and the title. Shot the odometer, the plates, snipped the tag, and bagged it. then set a discreet camera in the porch planter and angled the doorbell to cover the driveway from nose to tail. If there was going to be a show, I wanted clean audio, and a week later, the letter arrived on fancy MRCA paper. $500 for tampering with a community notice, $500 for non-compliance. Surrender the vehicle in 48 hours, or it will be deemed abandoned and towed at owner's expense. Abandoned in my driveway. Full tank insurance paid. That's the word they used. And that's how I knew this wasn't about rules. It was about power and performance. Brenda wanted a spectacle. Monday, before sunrise, a tow truck wheezed up to my curb. The kind of rig you call when your cousin's Buick dies behind a Waffle House. The driver, a skinny kid named Kyle, stared at the rolls like it was a piano. He'd been asked to carry up a mountain. Brenda stood under a golf umbrella like she was christening a ship and told him to hook it and haul it. I eased my F-250 out of the garage, parked nose to nose with the rolls, popped the hood, tied the winch cable under the car, and locked it to the rear. Axle, clicked the brake out. Anchor set, Kyle frowned. Brenda flashed cash, $200 in wet bills, and told him the HOA would assume liability as long as she signed. Of course. He threaded a nylon strap through chrome he didn't understand. Climbed in and hit the gas. The chain clanked. The tires screamed. My winch held. The rolls crouched a hair. And then that strap detonated with a crack that sounded like a bat at a summer game. The chain whipped into his own truck, and my loosened front hubcap skated across the wet street like a silver coin. The neighborhood went quiet. Kyle got out, pale. Tossed Brenda's cash into a puddle. Muttered, "Nope," and drove away. Without his broken strap, I picked up my hubcap. Looked at Brenda and saw the kind of hatred that is all embarrassment underneath. She left without a word, blinds across Maple Ridge, lifted an inch. You could feel the ground shift. That night, our house went dark, not the block, not the street. Us. The latch on the breaker box had been cut clean, and the switch thrown. Two figures came over the fence in hoodies, moving with clumsy purpose toward the side gate. Maya was already filming. I went out front and waited in the shadow by the corner when the latch lifted and the gate cracked open. I stepped into my own flashlight beam. They froze. I shoved the first one back into the yard, slammed the gate, threw the bolt, padlocked it, and told the guy outside to enjoy his jog. Because the cops were coming. The one I'd trapped sat on a patio chair like a scolded linebacker. I slid a juice box through the slats because I am not above petty hospitality. Sergeant Whitaker rolled up calm and took one look at the cut latch and the shoe prints and said, "That's not a misunderstanding. The trapped guy gave up a name in about 30 seconds. Ricky Sutton, Brenda's cousin. Trespass and property damage cuffs. Case number handed to me like a receipt." I slept for the first time in days. The next morning, I emailed the HOA insurer. Midwest Mutual with one question. If an HOA tries to use a privately owned car, for a parade, does your policy cover any part of getting or moving that car? And the reply came back fast and cold. No coverage for seizing or transporting private property. Any claim arising from use of a vehicle not owned or leased by the HOA would be denied, and the HOA would be fully liable. In plain terms, if Brenda got her parade and anything went wrong, my neighbors would pay for it. That letter became the hinge. This wasn't just about pride or a trophy. It was about a president risking everybody's money to feel tall. We cut a 5-minute highlight reel. Brenda tagging the hood ornament while announcing her authority, the tow truck fiasco with the strap, pop and the hubcap. Skate the night vision fence hop with Ricky on audio saying, Brenda said this would be easy, and then a clip. Maya found an hour before the break-in where Brenda herself tried to pry my rear plate off with a screwdriver before scurrying away, and I took a walk to see Eric Nolan. Our nervous treasurer told him the police had the footage, and I'd be playing the reel at the annual meeting, and if he wanted to be on the right side of this, he might search the books for parade consultant and see what address the money went to. I didn't twist, I just left him with a choice. The community center was standing room only. Brenda ran through landscaping, and minutes like a speed reader, and tried to adjourn with a quick gavel. I stood and said, I had new business. She snapped that I was out of order, and our neighbor Tom Alvarez boomed, Let him speak. The room backed him like a chorus. I rolled my projector card up front, hit play, and let the tag swing big on the wall. Gasps then. The letter with the fines and tow threat. Then the tow truck. The rev, the strain, the crack, a ripple of laughter, because fear had finally loosened then. The night vision. With Ricky's voice, then Brenda with the screwdriver, and finally the insurer letter. In 24-point type. No coverage, full liability on the HOA. The room shifted from outrage to decision, and that's when Eric stood face-pale, hands shaking, and said he'd found a $10,000 invoice to Sutton Event Group listed as Parade Consulting, a shell company, at the same address as Ricky, yeah. That happened too. The room erupted. Sharon Lee. A board member who'd had enough took the gavel and called for a vote of no confidence. The ayes hit like a wave. Nobody said no, not even Brenda. And before anyone could clap or make a speech, the side door opened, and Sergeant Whitaker walked in. With 2 officers. Brenda Sutton, we have a warrant for attempted theft and fraud. Please stand. The cuffs clicked. Small sound, big meaning. And that's where it ended for me. Hard cut, no victory lap. No parade of my own. Just the sound of a neighborhood breathing. I keep thinking about lines, how we want our neighborhoods to have standards but not crowns. How systems built to keep things tidy can turn into weapons for the loudest person in the room. I didn't win because I yelled. I won because we documented and stayed steady and let the truth get louder than her title. And I'm not pretending I handled every second perfectly. Anchoring a winch to dare a tow truck isn't exactly textbook. You can tell me if you think I crossed a line there. So tell me where you stand. Was I right to turn the cameras on and bring the whole mess into the room? Did we go too far with the winch or not far enough? With lawyers, have you seen an HOA or any little pocket of power slide into nonsense like this? And what finally stopped it? Drop your city or state, share your story. Push back on mine if you want, because I think the only way this stuff changes is when regular people compare notes and decide where the line actually is.